Hi, fifth graders. We're going to do our application problem for lesson 9 today. So I'm in my blue Learn book, and we're on lesson 9 application problem. It's on page 63. And let's get started. So we're going to read, draw, write. I'm just going to remind myself, read, we draw by solving, and then we write our answer. We do this on all word problems. 10 baseballs weigh 1,417 and 4/10 grams. About how much does one baseball weigh? Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a gram. Round your answer to the nearest gram. Which answer would you give if someone asked, how much does a baseball weigh? Explain your choice. Whoa, that was a lot. Okay, so first, circle the question marks for me. Where do you see them? I found one here, and I see another one here. And I'm also going to underline the word explain because it's not a question mark, but it is telling me to do something. It's an action. So there are 2 questions we need to answer, and then we're going to have to explain one of our answers. So the first question mark says, about how much does one baseball weigh? How could we write that? Turning it into a sentence. One baseball weighs about blank. There we go. I see it as an answer now. The second question mark, and pause the video if you need more time to write. Which answer would you give if someone asked about how much does a baseball weigh? Because before this, they want us to round it first to the nearest tenth and then to the nearest gram. So we're going to have to do 2 different roundings, and they want to know which answer makes more sense. So let's restate that. Which answer would you give if someone asked, so let's restate that. If someone asked about how much does a baseball weigh, question mark, and end the quote, I would round to blank because, and I'm going to need to fill that in. So we're going to be filling in, I would either round to the 10th or I'd round to the nearest gram. But we're going to have to do that first to see what makes more sense. All right, if you're confident in solving, remember that this number here is how much 10 baseballs weigh. They want to know 1. How could you figure that out? Something we've done before. So if you want to solve by yourself, that's fine. If not, let's solve along together. So here's what I know. That 10 baseballs together weigh this. So to figure out how much 1 weighs, I'm going to need to take the 10 baseballs, divide that by 10, and that will tell me 1 baseball, how much 1 baseball weighs. So dividing by 10, you could set it up long division, but that isn't what we've done lately. What have we done when we divide by 10? Think back to the beginning of this unit. I remember we would use our place value chart. I'm going to draw some lines to represent that. And we'd put in our number. So 1,417 decimal 4. If I wanted to, I could label the tops here and say, well, this is tenths, this is ones, this is tens, etc. But it's not needed. And then think, if we're dividing, would our number be getting bigger or smaller? It would be getting smaller because 1 baseball should weigh less than 10 baseballs. Dividing by 10 would be moving 1 spot over on the place value chart. So my 4 is now here. My 7 is here. The decimal stays. The 1, the 4, and the other one. Everything moved over one spot. Do you remember doing this? So now what does this number look like? So I have 1, then a 4, then a 1, then my decimal, then my 7, then my 4. So one baseball weighs 141 and 74 hundredths of a gram. Okay, we've done part of the problem. We figured out about how much one weighs. Or sorry, they don't even want to know exactly. They just want to know about. So now we have to say rounded to the nearest tenth of a gram. Well, actually, no, I think they do want to know this. Let's fill this in. I'm going to put a G. G stands for gram. So one baseball weighs about 141 and 74 hundredths gram. If someone asks about how much does a baseball weigh, I would round to, so first let's round to the nearest tenth. So here's our number. Rounded to the nearest tenth would be right here. Remember, if I'm rounding to the tenth, I'm going to use that number and everything before it. So it'll either be 141 and 7/10 of a gram, or will it be one more tenth? One more than 7 would be 8/10. Now we have to figure out the midpoint. 141 is the same on both, so I could write that part. Is there any number that comes between 7 and 8? There isn't. What was the trick if there's no numbers in between these? Let's make them larger without changing the value. So I add a 0. Are there any numbers between 70 and 80? There are. There are 10 numbers. Halfway through 10 would be 5. So in between 70 and 80 is 75. Last step. Is our number more or less than that midpoint? So far they're the same. 141, 141, 7. This one also has a 7 in the tenths. Our number has a 4 in the hundredths. This number has a 5, so it is less. And if it's less than the midpoint, I round down. So this is about 141 and 7/10 of a gram. Last part, round to the nearest gram. So same number, 141.74. Rounding to the nearest gram is just rounding to the nearest 1. You don't want any decimals. So it's either going to be 141. What's more than 141? 142. And what's in between 141 and 142? 141 and a half. So add my 5 and a half. So now our number, is it more than this or less than this? So I have my 141. Then I have a 5 as my midpoint. I have a 7 as my tenth in my real number. 7 is more. So it is somewhere up here. Do I round up or do I round down? Up. I am at the midpoint or higher, so I round up. So I could say it weighs about 142 grams. So here's the part where you have to think. If someone asks you how much does a baseball weigh, does it make more sense to tell them 141 and 7/10 of a gram or about 142 grams? What do you think? I think that if someone was asking me, they just want to know about how much. This gets pretty specific. And I don't know what 7/10 of a gram feels like. It must be really light. So does that 7/10 matter? Not really. It is about 142 grams. So I'm going to say, if someone asked about how much does a baseball weigh, I would round to the nearest gram because I'm going to say 7/10 of a gram is hard to imagine. It's so light. It's like hardly nothing. So, or hardly anything. So it doesn't really matter too much. All right. How did you do? I know this was a tough problem. So it's okay if you had to work through it with me. This had lots of steps. We had to first divide to figure out what one baseball was. Then we had to round it 2 different times to see which one would make more sense if you were asked about how much a baseball weighs. So good job today. I'm really proud of you for getting through everything, and keep it up. Bye, everyone.